Thank you so much. Welcome to Lagos State Media, our viewers across the globe, wherever you are tuning in. We are live here with our guests and our usual guests in the studio, prominent activist of South Sudan, who is the CEO of CEPO, Mr. Edmund Yakani, is here with us. And Edmund Yakani, as you have read below the screen, will brief us and talk to us about the fighting that is going on within Kitgwang faction or Kitgwang Group between Johnson Olony versus Simon Gadwich Dual. He will talk to us more about that, and he will also explore more possibilities on how government can intervene and other forces to arrest that fight before it explodes. Thank you so much. Our viewers, whoever is watching, I'm requesting you kindly to share the video or share the live show through your timeline so that your friends will get this information. To my brother, Edmund Yakani, welcome once more. We are happy that you are here always with us. Can you give us your remark or your opening remark for like 2 to 3 minutes before we go to the deep topic? Thank you so much, Edmund.
Thank you very much. Are you getting me clear?
Yes, you are so clear now.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Lex Media and to the viewers of Lex Media. I'm no longer speaking from Juba. I'm speaking from Awil. I'm sitting on the steps of a floor of Awil Grand Hotel just to access better internet because internet here is a bit problematic. So I'm in Awil. I'm sitting on the ground on the floor. So behind me is a entry to Awil Grand Hotel. So I'm speaking from Awil. So Awil is peaceful and Awil is calm. And I'd like to say to everybody, I'm outside Juba, I'm in Awil, and of course, closely monitoring the developments that are happening in Upper Nile as you raise it. So hi to everyone, happy Sunday, wherever you are, whether it is a morning, it's afternoon, or it's a night hour. We hope for the best. So here I am, and we can continue. Thank you, but greetings from Awil to everybody, and to the sons and daughters of Awil who may be watching us here. I'd like to tell you, your home is beautiful, it's green, and people are busy farming. So hope that you can extend peace to home wherever you are. Mention that we may have some little bit disturbance because I'm in front of a hotel. Vehicles may be passing by or
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani. And we are happy that you are in a will at that far end of Bar Kazal region. And we are happy that will is calm, peaceful, and people are living as they should. Thank you for going there also to monitor the situation in a will. And as we are going to talk about the Kitgwang faction, we are aware, Mr. Edmund, to our viewers, let me remind you once again, we'll be having issues with the connectivity because, you know, at the state level, our network is not that very strong, and even in Juba. So if you heard our guests or hear our guests later on being off and on, just know that we have issues with the internet. But God willing, we hope it will deliver its message successfully within whatever period of time that he will give us brief information in regard to the Kitgwang faction. Mr. Edmund, most of South Sudanese now are wondering what is happening within Kitgwang faction. It was not so long ago, it was just only last year when Kitgwang faction signed a peace deal with South Sudan government in Khartoum, and the delegation was sent to Juba. And seeing the delegation arrive in Juba, citizens are waiting for the next steps. What will be the next step between the government and the Kitgwang faction? And before they concluded their peace deal, we had the issues of fighting among themselves between Johnson Olony and Simon Gadwich. Kindly, can you brief South Sudanese in diaspora and even those who are in the country who could not have access to such information on what is really happening between Kitgwang faction? Thank you, Edmund. You can take your time. I think, Brother Edmund, yes.
Can you
go
hear
on, Edmund.
me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you made a disclaimer before that one of the challenges will be the internet, and I will wish if the audience can allow me to put up my video so that at least I can use the internet better for audio, but I keep on switching my video off and on. Just want to make a disclaimer so that nobody say like, who are we speaking to? Is that allowed? Can I just put the video off so that I use the audio so that at least I have a better of my voice?
Exactly, my brother, you can do that because we are interested to hear the information and our viewers need to hear the information. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Because of the internet, I'm going to be a bit faster and summarized, and I'll respond to rest through question and answers. First, you can see very clear that now our country is suffering from the gun class. And what I refer the gun class is I refer to the build-up of our defense sector through warlords that are happening. You are aware that the Kitgwang Group break out of the main SPLM-IO, and they established the Kitgwang Declaration, and then later on, in the process of that, they reached the level of signing an agreement with the government in Juba, or what do you call, with the incumbent government, SPLM, the incumbent government, through mediation of Sudan military. So I want us to get those facts very well. So Sudan military was the mediator of the agreement between Juba and Kitgwang Group. And that agreement have focused much more on integration of the Kitgwang Group into the South Sudan People's Defense Force. And in the process of that agreement implementation, one of the problems that might have surfaced today, and you're seeing today right from the ones headed by, and you have the Agwelek, which is mainly a Shuluk militia group, and the agreement of Agwelek with the government. And both agreements are focusing on integration of the Kitgwang forces. So I want to repeat, Agwelek agreement under the leadership of Olony, separately with Juba, which is much more focusing on land and integration of Agwelek into SSPDF. And then you have the overall Kitgwang, which is under Simon Garwich, signed with Juba. So these are two, one agreement with two parts. And that's what has brought the problem of today, simply because of those two parts. So what is going on when the advanced team was sent to Juba? Advanced team represent both of them. Advanced team for Simon Garwich members and advanced team for Johnson Olony team under the Agwelek agreement. So both advanced team were in Juba. I think they're coming to Juba. They found themselves being split up, and the culture of split is already one particular group is impressed and one particular group is not impressed. So Simon Garwich feels that he is the leader of Kitgwang Declaration. So like he is the commander-in-chief who signed. And for Simon Garwich, he felt that Agwelek agreement is part and parcel of Kitgwang agreement with Juba. So he does not see like Agwelek as a separate agreement. And that started bringing tension about making decisions. Who make decisions under Agwelek agreement with Juba and then Kitgwang agreement with Juba? And already from the day one, Agwelek agreement have put Olony as in charge of Agwelek force, which is actually the fighting force under Simon Garwich, under the Kitgwang Group. So that's the problem. So this problem continued until Simon Garwich was calling for the advanced team to return when he couldn't get the purpose of why the advanced team visited Juba. And in that already, tension started merging between Johnson Olony and Simon Garwich. And the tension was over now leadership control. Who controls? Because somehow Agwelek feel comfortable with Juba, while Garwich does not feel comfortable with Juba. And Garwich called all advanced team that belongs to Kitgwang who are in Juba should leave Juba and go back to Khartoum. And that man is inclusive of Agwelek delegates who also come in the advanced team. And that created tension between Olony and Simon Garwich. And that tension continued where we're getting it as a rumors in social media. They have been denying we're in good terms until when recently the agreement reached the level of where Garwich moved a step forward when he realized that Olony is no longer receiving orders from him, and you see Olony is in direct communication with Juba and feel Olony have left him, and Olony is using Agwelek agreement as a separate agreement from Kitgwang Group. So that has brought leadership crisis among them. And among the leadership crisis resulted to the following. Resulted one to Simon Garwich calling advanced team to return, and Olony saying no, advanced team don't return, specifically Agwelek members. And this reached to the level of the controlling of forces on the ground. So Olony finds himself that he is having the big fighting force, mainly the Agwelek forces, compared to Simon Garwich, which doesn't have a big force like what he have, though there's quite a number of really boots for Simon Garwich. So that became a question of leadership on who is having authority to communicate with Juba over the Khartoum Peace Agreement, which have its two parts, the Agwelek agreement with Juba and then the overall Kitgwang agreement with Juba. So I think some few people in Juba take advantage of that split of the two agreement, and they start impressing Agwelek like, look here, we can't really continue with you until Simon Garwich is out of power. And that has brought attention until on the ground they start exchanging threats to each other in terms of control. Remember, the first thing is that Olony have to tell Garwich that, please, you leave my base, go to your own territory, you're under my territory, I can't accommodate you. And that have been rumors, until we come to realize that the latest development that has confirmed that that rumors is true is the coming of the former deputy of Dr. Riek Machar, Henry Oduaro, who left Canada and landed to Khartoum. And then in Khartoum, they have a discussion. And in Khartoum, automatically, one of the messages of Henry Oduaro is that Simon Garwich should dismiss Olony. And when Olony heard about that, Olony was not happy because he was not invited in Khartoum and was not fully engaged in Khartoum when Simon Garwich was in dialogue with Henry Oduaro. And remember, later on, then Simon Garwich appointed Henry Oduaro as a political figure of Kitgwang Group. That's the beginning. That's the beginning of tension. And this tension continued until they reached a level of confrontation, which for the last 3 days, they have been fighting themselves badly. And the fighting that they have is that it's really a deadly fight where you can characterized by commitment of crime against humanity, human rights abuses, and over now 27,000 people were displaced in the areas where they're fighting. And it's a serious fighting that may escalate to the other parts of the Upper Nile state. And specifically, you may cross up to Pagak, you may go, it may affect Fangak, it may affect Mayut. So that's the situation that the two warlords are in. Now, what is going on? Later on, the last 2-3 days, we have seen new development coming in. And this development is what I will later on conclude so that I have the chance to receive question and answer. The development is that SPLM-IO start accusing SSPDF of building an alliance with Olony and attacking their bases. That's the first accusation we had from SPLM-IO, which is less than a day. And then IO made it very clear that, and even Dr. Riek Machar was saying that there's a militarized campaign against the IO in Upper Nile. And of course, that is already confirmed in several media outlets. That's one factor that we need to note it down now. But also after 2 days, Olony came out, which is mainly today. Olony say now there's a joint force that is composed of SPLM-IO under Dr. Riek Machar and then Garwich and then Dr. Lama called that they have come together and they are giving him a pressure that they are pushing him out of where he is. So that's now the latest development. So what does it mean? It means it's already totally a proxy war. So characteristics of proxy war is very clear. And when it's a characteristic of proxy war, you need to have some factors to put into mind. Remember, in the first days of the 2013 crisis, even 2016 crisis, Olony have a deputy called Johannes who pay allegiance to Lama Col, and later on Olony killed him. Pay allegiance to Lama Col. It means there's already tension between Olony and Lama Col as truancy is concerned. So now if he's saying Lam have joined his forces with Garwich to fight him and IO. So already that meant within the Shulu constituency, there's a tension between Olony and Lama Col over the control. And over Garwich is already also having a crisis between him having his forces that may have pay into the game also in putting Olony. So it means the two leaders, Simon Garwich and Olony, are now hunting on each other. And that hunt on each other is a deadly hunt. What does it mean? It means the seeds of a possible genocide is already planted, or even let me say genocide is going on between of Garwich versus Olony, but also within the Shuluk, you're going to have a tension where Olony is going to eliminate anybody who he feel as an allegiance or an support is going to deal with whoever belongs to Olony. That means also within the constituency of Shuluk, Lam versus Olony tension is going to merge and is going to be deadly. So that is the situation we're in. Now, what is the way forward? For me, the way forward is that one, if His Excellency President Salva needs to take responsibility as somebody who is entrusted as a President of the Republic with the Constitution, he needs to quickly intervene in calling the parties to observe ceasefire role as a President of the Republic. So President Salva is happening. The Khartoum Peace Agreement of 16 January 2022, also 2021, need to come into game. So Sudan Army also have a responsibility to de-escalate the tension that is going, because I'm quite sure they might have been getting aiding from Sudan, also from both sides. So for me, that's the tension, that's the confusion we are in now. But of course, both Juba and Khartoum are smiling, because this is completely an issue of where you see warlords are clashing each other. So for me, that's the information I can share.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, for that briefing. It's very unfortunate indeed that our country is suffering from monkey folk war. You see, monkey folk, this new disease, sometime it appeared like a small swollen things, either in one of your parts, either on your face or on your cheek or on your arm. And immediately before you even handle and treat it, that swollen spot, another one will appear on the other part of your body. It's the same thing that is happening in our country. The citizens always believe that once another rebellion is already being resolved, then another rebellion also appeared in another part of the country. It's very unfortunate that the Kitgwang faction and Khartoum Declaration or Agreement gave citizens hope that maybe these two warlords will come together under the leadership of revitalized peace agreement in Juba. And unfortunately, it turned out to be a different case. It's very sad indeed. But the question is, Mr. Edmund, the first person who established the house was Simon Gatwich when he broke away from IO, and he invited Johnson Olony into his house so that he can boost up his strength and have a bargaining power toward Juba government. And that is why they were actually called quickly, because the government thought these two warlords, once they merge together at once, then there will be a very big threat to the regime. They called them to Khartoum for the peace talk. So the first person people were assuming to be at the front line negotiating with the government was Simon Gatwich, deputized by Johnson Olony. Citizens are now asking themselves, what could be the reason that has triggered this fight among themselves? Is it because the Juba government is applying divided and rule policy? Or what exactly? Or are they fighting for the chairperson of the Kitgwang Khartoum agreement? between Johnson Oloy and Simon Gatwich. Kindly, Mr. Edmund, if you have any information in regard to that, can you tell the citizen if the government is having hand in their fight? And if not, then what are they fighting for? Yet they have not even been given a position by the government for them to fight who should take it and who should not take it. It's like kid fighting before the food even arrived to their table. Thank you, Edmund. Mr. Edmund, yes, you can unmute yourself. If you heard me correctly, then you answer the question. Thank you.
Yes, I heard you. I heard you correctly. I heard you correctly. One is that it's clearly is a question of divided rule principle that have caused havoc among them. Normally doesn't have political objective. They have personal gains. So they want to maintain constituency that none of them should feel somebody's questioning their constituents in terms of their administrations. So this is the problem of the warlords, but it was really clearly divided rule principle. That's one thing. And also remember, both doesn't have a good terms with the leadership, that they are dividing themselves towards it or they are fighting over it, because both have problem with the president, whether being it Garwich or being Olonge. So all of them have attention. So all of them are fighting over control of constituency, but of course, Juba used divide and rule principle. That's really my answer, is that they're hungry of power and they're hungry of having a titles that everybody want to enjoy, but at the same time, they're weak in terms of approach and ideology of what exactly are they standing for. So these are clearly indicator of revolutionaries who are possessed by interest of controlling power for personal gain and who fear question of check and balance at the center. So, and of course, the center took advantage of that in looking at them at that and then applied the divide and rule principle to split them up so that they get more confused, and it's for their advantage anyway. So this is, I can describe as a war of the warlords, forgotten warlords, that makes both centers of power in Juba smiling. Let them continue fighting as long as their fight is weakening strengths of opposition towards the center. So I think that's the situation they're facing in. But also this tells you very clearly that, you know, we will continue suffering until the gun class, which I can describe the gun class, is really the class of these warlords that whenever they reach agreement or the agreement they don't feel their personal. One of the things that is really disturbing me so much is the coming in of Dr. Lamarck to join the warlords. So as of this tells you that actually we also will suffer from political elites who have the hangover of the revolutionaries. You know, revolutionaries normally, their political theory is much more of self-interest that they focus on. And it's very clear now that if really it happened that force of Lamarck is engaged in this crisis, it's clear that revolutionaries cannot manage in building a state that is independent and vibrant as prosperity. That's a big deal. And this also tells you that we are suffering. Clearly, we're suffering that there's a disease in Africa, what do you call the African independent curse, which that always when Africans get their independence, they have to fight each other for quite a period of time. I think it's the same independent curse that we're suffering from, and simply suffering from independent curse because our independence is received by revolutionaries who politically have nothing to do with the national characteristic focus, rather than having a political agenda of either empowering self or centering power within oneself, and one feel that power should not be questioned. And I think that's the advantage that have given Juba a chance. And anyway, all of them are the same revolutionaries who will continue suffering from the weak political ideology and their weak political stand in building the state that embrace the praise of the Republic of South Sudan. They don't believe on the Republic of South Sudan. They believe on the Republic of their own constituencies that they define it as a South Sudan. So we'll continue suffering from there. So it's a clear application of divide and rule principle. But for me, that divide and rule principle, it's a planting of a genocide in our society. So we need to stand up and we need to call. And that's why I'm saying if president have a really constitutional responsibility and he feels he's a president of the Republic, he should intervene and making sure that an external force is used to de-escalate the ongoing violence, because people who are suffering there, they are South Sudanese, they deserve equal rights, they deserve equal benefits, they deserve any peace that any South Sudanese in any part. Like right now I'm in Awil Grand Hotel, I'm enjoying, I'm sitting. They deserve wherever they are the same situation I'm facing. So we must call our leaders. They need to intervene, stop it, and it is not of everybody interest in the country or anybody's benefit. What we are saying is that is our own citizen facing a pain, and they have been forced to face a situation that they don't deserve it. So we need to call off these warlords to stop it on whatever they're doing.
Thank you so much, Edmund Yakani. It's actually, I don't know how people can describe the war going on between the Kitgwang faction. But to be honest, that is total madness. You cannot fight over something that you have not even secured yet. They did not even secure agreement with the Juba government, and they are now fighting. And the Juba government is smelling, as you put it, likewise the Khartoum regime. But before we move to the question of Lema Call joining Simon Gatwich, I need you to say something in regard to the Khartoum. For the last few weeks, we have heard from Juba government when the prisoners of war were captured in Sudan and handed over to the government of South Sudan through Unity State Government, and they were executed. The government of South Sudan was saying we had an agreement or MOU with the Sudan government. In case of anybody that is disturbing our peace and jumping into your territory, you must capture that person and hand it over back to us. And you said before in your first remark that the Kitgwang faction, both sides of Johnson Oleny and Simon Gatwich, might be aided by Sudan or Khartoum government. Do you think this MOU is not applicable to them? And why is it that Juba government is so quiet in this case? Is it because they are not even endangering them, the Juba regime? Is because they are fighting among themselves? That's why the Juba regime cannot even talk to the Sudan government to see how best they can bring these two warlords together, because there's people that are suffering now as citizens, and nobody is a commissioner among them, and nobody is a military person among the civilians that are suffering. Others are dying, others are displaced, as you put it earlier. Kindly, can you shed more light about that? Why is it this MOU of South Sudan and Sudan is so selective and segregative? When it comes to Stephen Boy, then the MOU is so effective. And when it comes to Johnson Oleny and Simon Gatwich, then the MOU is muted. And you will touch something to do with the visit of Presidential Security Advisor Tutkal Galwak to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. People are preempting it. That is the same MOU. Kindly, can you highlight more about that, Mr. Edmund? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that the internet allow you to hear me well. I'll try my level best. I got your questions.
Yes, you are clear now.
I think the MOU is not applied for these guys, for Olony and Gatwich, because both of them have houses in Khartoum. Their center of decision making are all based in Khartoum. So I don't think that MOU is really a genuine MOU. That's one thing that I'd like to make it very clear. And I think also Khartoum is benefiting from the confusion that they're causing on the ground, because for interest, they may give chance. They're also gaining from the confusion of these guys, and that's why they can keep these guys to confuse the environment and weaken their clear example that is caused as in weakening also the influence that Juba may have, and maybe also they may be gained from sales. In terms of sales of warfare equipments, they might have gained out of it. I think that's something that is disturbing them, and they might have gained out of it economical benefit of the confusion that's going on. So that MOU, I don't think is applicable for that level, and I think that MOU is much more of limited for few small group that may have been treat it like what happened in Mayom. Those ones is more smaller and they're not so influential. They're not giants. So these giants, they can't dealt with, because these giants, they are benefiting out of these two giants. I think that's one thing I'd like to say. And it's the same thing that is said is applicable to what is now happening within us and Addis and the visit of the secret advisor to Addis. And of course, this is extending another regional scale. Remember the issue of the water, the dredging, Egypt, Cairo, and Khartoum. We are putting our nose into another regional game that actually will not help us, because the rest will ask, okay, you're signing an MOU, what about our interest? What about our partnership with you? So I think those are some of the things that is really destabilizing and getting it more harder. And also you are aware that Khartoum have expressed interest to train our security institutions in terms of capability under the revitalized peace agreement. As Chapter 2 is concerned, the reforms, the transformation of the entity to make sure that it is an entity that is more national. So now when you start asking your former opponent to come and strengthen your security and defense sector in terms of training, that's another big issue that also, it's another big issue that also is affecting the geopolitics, and that raises a big alarm. So I think going to Addis to sign an MOU, security MOU, and I think this is maybe the second one. If I'm tracking the second signature, by the way, of an MOU with Ethiopia, I don't know what happened to the first MOU which was signed, and now the second MOU been signed. And you have this issue of Khartoum aiding opposition without even holding them accountable in destabilizing. And remember, the Sudan leadership was saying our MOU was that anybody at the borders disturbing, we must squeeze them. But now, where is Olony? Where is Gatwich? All of them are getting their aid coming from Khartoum. They have no any market that can sell for them the bullets they're shooting. And they don't have a manufacturing of bullets and ammunition on the ground. So, and you see them driving Land Cruisers that are brand new, chasing each other. And also Lamakol is coming into that game. So, for me, it's completely a total disaster in terms of a leadership direction of where we need to head to and what define our interest as a nation for our own national stability and peace and our regional influence and our game in geopolitical and security interest or agenda. I don't think we don't have any clear direction towards that. So for me, these games we're playing may seem today is shouting more of Upper Nile, but I will tell you this game may draw closer even to Juba and may drag the country to a complete warlord's game that we may not expect to see. And specifically, when the extension period does not gain any political will or any political space, everybody will run into that. Of course, you have seen already part of signatories to the revitalized peace agreement have been accused of being behind that. And of course, that's Dr. Lamakol. And likely you may have also the question of the Rome peace process may be undermined if this continue. Other members of Rome peace process saying, okay, let's also jam into that. So for me, it's a question of interest.
Yeah, thank you, Edmund, for that. It's really true, and I agree with you that Sudan is taking advantage of this confused situation in our country. It was yesterday when I was watching news from Graftash, and one of the analysts, when they were analyzing the power between China and the US, said something very interesting. She said that China always capitalize on those countries that are not stable in order to take advantage of their confusion. And she gave example of African countries where China is deeply rooted in depth in. And she said China will conquer the world within the next 25 years if the superpowers don't wake up now. Then China will conquer the world, because China is now working to confuse those countries that are even confused already. So it's the same policy that is being applied by Khartoum government. Although they have their own problems, they always assume their problems are lighter compared to South Sudan challenges. Let's go back to the issue of Lamakol, Brother Edmund. People are wondering, if Dr. Lamakol has been accused to be behind Simon Gatwich, then people ask two questions. Lem was part and parcel of a revitalized peace agreement. His members of parliament from his party are currently sitting in the parliaments in Juba. Is that true, according to you, Edmund? And if it is true, then what do you think that could be his motive? What motivated Lem to join warlord. Thank you.
Are you getting me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Yeah, I think coming to his question is really totally a political confusion, as you said, is that he is part and parcel of the revitalized agreement, and as you said, that based on the agreement, you have members in all levels of the structure of the government. But this tells you the behaviors of revolutionaries who might not have a clear, concrete political ideology of what they want. And I think really it's a clear demonstration of when you say revolutionaries have no motives of driving the country apart from meeting their personal interests. So we need to hear from him, actually. For me, one of the things I went to see it before I could blame him is to hear his official position, because right now I can't blame him. That may be rumors, that may not be true, but we hope that he can respond to that and free himself from there and tell us exactly what motivates him. But if what Olong say is true, it is correct that he is part and parcel of that, then it's a political contradiction, and it's also very clear it's a political weakness of political elites like him to get messed up in such situations. So for me, we need him to come out openly and clear for us who he is and whether what Olong say is true that he is involved. And if he's involved, he need to tell us the reasons why he was involved. And remember, there was a time an article was issued in Sudan Post that he withdrew from the agreement. And they said, no, he didn't withdraw. Remember, he made a statement, official statement, that he didn't withdraw. So if he didn't withdraw, why is it now he is involved in this mess? So for me, it's a question of taking responsibility sincerely and being a nationalist, standing for stability of the country and making sure that South Sudan is a stable country. Yes, we may have political disagreements, but we must make sure that at least we stand up and we make sure that our country is peaceful and stable. How much political we're confused, but if we start messing up politically in such, and remember his track record, his history, if he's involved in this, is very bad, because he's one of the person I say he cannot stabilize a political movement. How many names from the agreement and he jump away? No, all these political parties that he have established, he left, and it's clear that if he's really involved, then we'll say our political elites are lacking political maturity in building the state we aspire to have it since 1947 until we end up with the independence 2011. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund, for that. It's true indeed, sometimes we cannot judge before we hear from both parties. We will try as Lagos State Media to reach out to Lemakol Party. If we cannot get him, then we reach out to some of his MPs in Juba to come and tell us their positions in regard to the accusation. Now we have had and we have seen 3 groups that are now fighting across South Sudan. There are even 4. There is Thomas Rilo group, there is Stephen Boy group, and the 2 faction of Kitgwang faction. There are now 4. And likely others might emerge in the process before the end of this year or even next year. Nobody knows. Considering all this, Mr. Edmund, as one of the activists, and as somebody who have traveled across South Sudan, do you think this fighting will affect the extension periods of revitalized peace agreement? Thank you.
To be honest, just to pick up from where you level the groups, if you want me to make an opinion, I have an opinion on that. One thing that is becoming very clear for us in the country is that our political elites are really lacking a national political agenda for building the state split between a group that want to take on themselves, and then they move against the system. Later on, they went and they split also up into different groups. And if you see that, for me, it tells by not impressing these elites that doesn't have a clear focus. And this period, if it's the two principals have not taken it serious, that's mainly the president and the first vice president. If you don't take it serious, it's going to be a period of a mess, because most of these groups are going to justify lack of political will to implement the revitalized agreement in the extension as an agenda for establishing political movement. Maybe, as you said, we can't really judge Lama Call now. Maybe Lama have predicted that the only option now is go back to the bush. Maybe say now the extension does nothing to be gained. But I think now is a personal responsibility of the president and the commands that are extended are seriously taken, and they use that for implement the agreement, because it's very clear now that there's no group that have established itself have never split. If you talk of the IO split in 2016, Bandeng group and Riek Machar group, then later on Riek split up with Garwich. If you go to Soma split up before, but then there's a Soma one, and then you have Soma under Thomas Cirillo, Soma under Paul Malong, and we don't know how much they're going to continue being in unity together. And now you see Kitgwang also split now under Olong and under Gatwich. So it's very clear that there's no group. Even Sowa split. You have that Sowa, which was Banden Sowa under Josephine Lagu, and then later on Sowa versus Lam, then Lam left them. Now, already it's a big deal that our political elites have failed. For me, what I like to set it here of South Sudan, and even in this extension, years, we're not going to gain anything. But for me, of course, when I stood to support the extension, is giving them a last option. Tried how much will the president and first vice president take responsibility of making the 2 years as a real period of political shift of attitudes and behaviors, and a political shift that they want to make sure that the country have the responsibility to ensure peace and stability prevail the state of South Sudan, and South Sudan have to exist as a nation like the rest of the countries. Otherwise, the chances of us having a failed state is very high, though we have now a fragile state, but the chance of us collapsing completely to a country like any other description by Somalia is very high if the political leaders didn't utilize the 2 years extension seriously. And they should utilize 2 years extension by extending the political will by bringing on board those of Simon Garwich, Olong, and their own peace process. Otherwise, still another phase of waves of another military confrontation is ahead of us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Edmund, for your answers and your perspective and your view. Actually, it's true. If the two principles that are leading the country now don't take it into account, that the extension period was not just merely to stay in power, as they exuded during the launching of roadmap, then they need to reach out to all the groups and bring them on board, mediate or talk to them. Unfortunately, the sign and the symptoms that the extension government is now trying to showcase is giving people worried. They're even developing a new model of how to crush your enemy, and that is deadly. That's why you see them. The security advisor is not sleeping. Is moving across the Arabs or Muslim countries that speak Arabic, at least to tell them that this is our policy. And as our neighbor, you need to comply with it. Bring our rebel group home, and then we will bring yours if you have any rebel. Thereafter, we will see how we can deal with them. So that is a deadly strategy, of which it will not give us a real peace for the next 2 years. It's very unfortunate. Before we wrap it up with the situation in a will regarding flooding and all this, I will yield it back to the people behind the scene, especially my chairman. There are some questions down there. Yeah, we have a question here from Henry. My question is, do we still have IO forces loyal to Riek in Upper Nile region or Upper Nile? given the fact that Upper Nile is divided into 4: Lam, Simon, Cologne, and Stephen Boy. So I don't know whether there is another question, and if there is no questions, then Mr. Edmund, you will answer that question from one of our viewers. Mr. Henry is asking whether Riek Machar still have forces in Upper Nile region, despite that Upper Nile has been divided among the 4 groups. Thank you.
I think my answer is yes. He still have loyalists there, and actually also in the midst of this confusion, he can still buy off others that belong to those 4 players. So it's going to be a playground without principles of the rule of the game. It's now where you have interest, you defect, and that's going to be confusion. So I think, yes, he still have a forces there, but of course, these 2-4 divisions are weakening his presence there. So what we talk about is now his influence. His influence is no longer the influence that we have seen before. He have lost a huge influence to these other 4 merging groups that are on the ground, but also these 4 merging groups are not enjoying a maximum 100% influence. Each of them are afraid of the other, but we're going to see soon warlords chasing each other. Actually, to become a game of warlords dealing with warlords. So it's a playground of warlords chasing each other, and each one want to deal with the other. And now when the ones deal with the other, the next your ally become also a warlord that you have to fight for. So it's a total confusion, but we don't wish that situation to happen to our Upper Nile region, as is one of the biggest region, populated region, and region of production. But the elites that comes from there has created this mess. But we should not call it an issue of Upper Nile. It is a national issue, and we must all stand up and tell them, stop it, enough is enough. So as South Sudan, we should not condone whatever is happening by leveling it as an Upper Nile issue. No, it's a national issue, and the political leadership must be held accountable to ensure that that particular part of our country is peaceful, is stable, and citizens who are there, they enjoy the same privileges like all of us who are enjoying other parts of the country, relative peace and stability.
Thank you, Brother Edmund. I think up to this juncture, you will just update us about the flood issue in Awil and how you have seen Awil and the Northern Barakazal in general. And thereafter, we will end our show because your internet or network is really disturbing you. And once you return to Juba, we still have more conversation in regard to the issues of our country. And sometimes international relations is always when you do the interest of your friends. That is why your friends will do your interest. We don't know what will be the position of Egypt toward the delegation which was sent to Ethiopia. And as Egypt is so much interested in our Nile water, I think it will be a topic for another day. But can you brief us about the situation in Awil in general? Thank you.
I'm still 2 days in Awil. Of course, I have seen the floods, and one of the reasons of my coming here is to raise an advocacy around the floods. And I know the floods are affecting the population, but of course, the center in Juba is so quite about the flood situation. And of course, my aim is to collect a first-hand primary information about the impact of the floods. But I'll say the floods is real here. It's affecting the population. So as the country is suffering from other parts, also our citizens here are suffering from the floods. And this may affect the production season, and once the production season is affected, means food situation, speak to the actual people who suffered from it, and then raise it up in the advocacy work and push the center in Juba to respond to the situation. Because always my work is that I have to get my own primary independent information. But I'll say the situation is peaceful. Of course, political, there's this confusion between the rest of the leadership of the IO who are here, but at least now it's relatively, I found that it's not a big deal, but of course we have seen it already. Are you saying they need to be free? They feel that they are being squeezed, not having a political space. But of course, I'm on the ground. I will continue assessing, and later on, I can share with you after my assessment mission that I'm in. I can speak to our audience here and share with them the facts that I've seen. But Awil is relatively peaceful. As I'm speaking now, I'm speaking from Awil Grand Hotel. You can see a big number of people watching at football. People are impressing. You can see their faces are peaceful, and wish that this would continue. as a peace. Of course, we can hear the political game between IO and the political leadership here, and then also Malong raising a concern about these commanders. But all these situations I will assess and I will share with the audience after my assessment. But the floods, I personally have seen it even within the town. Forget about, you go to the villages within the town already, it's on the main road that comes from the airstrip to the town that is free, but all sides of the road that come from the airstrip to the town is flooded, is watery. The streams are all full and the water are really coming towards the main road. And of course, this main road, if the rain season continue, it's not going to be easy. I'm here 2 days. The 2 days I'm here, it's raining heavily. So I think it's a question of, that's why 2 days ago, before I could leave, I've called upon the government to really call for a national flood mitigation conference, so that at least we task the governors to respond to the question of the floods. And as I speak now, all governors are in Juba, and I hope that they are meeting in Juba with the president, they raise the issue of the floods, so that we need to see money injected in the floods in terms of the responses, because it is a primary responsibility of the national government in coordination with the state governors to make sure that they respond to the floods and they have alternative protection or rescue plan for our citizens who are suffering, because that means malaria is going to increase among our population, food production is going to decrease among our population. So all this needs a bit of a response to it, and we need a political responsibility that that's serious and enjoy of this area where it's stable, but the floods is becoming a threat to human life in our will. And of course, I think that one, we should not undermine it, and we should not keep quiet about it. We should talk about it. And I will urge sons and daughters of South Sudanese, wherever they are, let us start putting a campaign around the government responsibility to respond, to rescue the lives of our citizens across the country over the floods in Upper Nile, in our will, of course, unity, and then likely we may have Jongole coming up. So this is a message that I would like to convey to everybody. But I would like to say the state is stable as per now, as I'm in our will Grand Hotel, I'm speaking to you. And of course, for the days I'm here, the other thing that is merging up is now the gang groups. And I can share with your audience that the culture of the gang groups in South Sudan is really growing, and I think is affecting the young population. It's something that we need to address, and I'm worried that some enemies of our economy may advance and use these gang groups to paralyze our economy. So it's something that I had a lot when I was yesterday moving around the population. But I'd like to send a message that will specifically to the sons and daughters of Awil, that please, wherever you are, when you are thinking about development, when you are thinking about making money, think about sending some money back to Awil to make Awil as a great state that wish to be one of exemplary state to the Republic of South Sudan. So for me, that's a message that I would like to use this platform to raise it up. And I like to say, I'm here for at least 5 days, and I will ready after when I leave from here, I can share with the audience what I have assessed and what I have seen. And of course, as a nationalist, nation matters more than any interest. Having the nation of South Sudan peaceful and stable, and making sure that we beat our chest in the same way how our players have made us famous, we should turn that spirit to make politics and governance so famous as like our players have made basketball famous South Sudan. So I would say this is my end. Let God bless South Sudan. Let God be with us. And thanks for listening for me. And I'll keep on being as your guest, and I'll keep on sharing information. And thanks for you also providing me the platform to speak. But of course, in terms of our national leadership, it's a question of change of political attitudes and putting the nation on the top of their interests and in their hearts. We should not join games that we don't have a strength to. This new development in Addis is a bit disturbing. If you have to bring in Egypt, if you have to bring in Sudan, if you have to bring in Qatar coming into it, if you have to bring in Middle East like Saudi Arabia, and now Sudan saying they want to take responsibility to train our security forces. Those of us who have gone to school as you can. Your writing will not go for vain. Your writing can bring argument and can change.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani. It is a tragic in our country for our government to trust our yesterday enemy to train our security personnel. That is a joke. How do you expect your yesterday enemy to deliver credible training to your own people? So it's a joke if our government allowed that to happen, because Sudan also is having their own issues. And it is yesterday enemy. So why do you trust them again to go and train your own people? And you have other countries that are more capable and more advanced, where you can inject your money and give you credible knowledge that your people need in terms of security or in terms of military. So it's very unfortunate indeed if they allow that to happen. But of course, it will not be a surprise because the presidential security advisor is not sleeping. It always dance happily in that angle. So it will not be a surprise to happen or to hear from them. Up to this juncture,
my
yes.
brother. Also, one thing
As
that
you are
if we do that
interjecting,
mistake,
also you can make your last remark before we end. Thank you.
That tell us very clear what the Northerners by then was saying, that give South Sudanese less than 10 years, they will come back to us. And I think we've proven what during our Independence Day, that I'm doubting that you will govern to yourself. You will come back to us. I think that's a proof that we have gone back to them. And we are actually becoming whether a district or a payam for them, that they can dictate on how they want things to be done here. And that's really is a political shame on our struggle for independence, that now we're going to go back to them. Of course, they are our neighbor. We need to have a very good neighborhood, but neighborhood in a way that should not undermine the principle of our struggle, why we split out of them by having an independent state. I think that's what we want to say. And of course, my final remark is that wherever we are as South Sudanese, violence should not be an option of an argument for resolving our political grievances. How much you are discontented, let dialogue be the option. And for dialogue to be the option, it's a call now for the authorities, specifically in Juba, to allow freedom of expression in political space, so that when we speak to each other, when we talk like this, we can find amicable solution without a bullet of the gun. So my appeal is that let's stop the culture of the gun. And my call specifically goes to Simon Garwich and Olong, and goes to Dr. Lama Call, and goes to whoever, and specifically also the president in terms of the SSPDF and Dr. Riek Machar, that please call your forces to cease hostility now in Upper Nile, and making sure that ceasefire prevailed now in Upper Nile. We are not losing lives of anybody. We're losing lives of South Sudanese. Can they remember one thing that I'd like to conclude with? Anybody who is championing war in Upper Nile, remember that image where there was a girl who is suffering from starvation during our 21 years of struggle. And behind that girl, a vulture is standing, waiting when will this girl die and will eat. Is the life of that girl, the value of that girl. Remember, it was taken by a French journalist who later on committed suicide after watching that image. When he took that image, the French genocide. So if a French journalist who took a picture of our own son or our own daughter, have that image made him to commit suicide, why are we committing suicide by fighting each other and undermining the suffering and the value and that misery situation the girl faced, which have led for us to vote for independence? Why is it now, after we utilize that particular historical moment, that now we make sure that we are not keenly focusing at stabilizing ourselves? That's my closing remark.
Thank you so much, Brother Edmund Yakani, for your time and giving us your chance to come and talk to South Sudanese and brief us what is happening in the ground, on the ground, especially the issue of Kitgwang faction fighting and the circumstances that surrounding their conflict. We always appreciate your presence, and we will continue inviting you to come and talk to us. Continue to stay peacefully in a will. Until you return to Juba, we will still have more conversation so that you can update us about the flood situation and the issue of IO leadership, that the person that has been arrested in Northern Barkazal. And we will pick it up from there. To our viewers, thank you so much for coming always to listen to our guests. On behalf of Lagos State Media, we are always grateful to you guys, and it is our mandate to give you any information and bring the people of goodwill who love South Sudan, who has good intention for South Sudan, to come and talk to us. To the suffering civilians in Upper Nile region, in the hand of two warlords, Lagos State Media is in solidarity with you. We feel your pain and we feel your suffering, but we cannot lose hope, because human beings survive only on hope. We must keep our hope alive, knowing that one day we will be peaceful and we will enjoy the independent, the real independent. Time will come for South Sudanese to enjoy it. People were not even hoping that South Sudan will be independent state in those days of 1960s, 1980s, up to 1990s, up to earlier 2000. South Sudanese were having no hope for that, but it has come to pass. We are independent nation, and we should be grateful for that, despite the confusion in our house. By God's grace, we will transit from this confusion mood to the peaceful, prosperous, and joyous South Sudan in the near future. May God bless each and every one of you, and may God bless South Sudan. Thank you.